tremendous amount of economy to our community. Okay, next what I want to do is very quickly talk about our cash position, our financial well-being, if you will. This slide looks at our general fund cash reserve, and you'll see that benchmark of 20% that cuts across the slide. At all times, we want to have 20% of our operating budget in cash reserves. Okay, so at any point in time, we don't want to dip below 20%. In fact, every month when we give our monthly financial report, Robert will tell us what percentage we are at. I think last month we were about 29%, if I recall correctly. And that number will probably come down a little bit as we spend money throughout the remainder of this fiscal year. But we anticipate being well above the 20% threshold. In fact, by the end of this fiscal year, we anticipate being over $800 million in our, $8 million. That'd be really good, wouldn't it? $8 million in our cash reserve. And that number, as you can see, is actually going to grow a little bit based on this slide. And that's because as we wind down this fiscal year, and Robert is looking at end-of-year projections, he is projecting that we'll finish the year with a surplus. Well, we're not prepared to give a public number yet because we're still crunching numbers. But at the May 24th Committee of the Whole meeting, we hope to be prepared to bring to the Committee of the Whole, members of our City Council, what we think that year-end surplus is going to be. But we do think we will have one. As a result of an ordinance that was passed last year, half of that year-end surplus, 50%, will be taken off the top and go to our capital reserve account. Okay, that's an account that was created last year, specifically set aside with $500,000 from our reserves. We'll add to it with 50% of any year-end surplus to keep that cash account growing. And the reason we set aside that capital reserve account is because we know we have some big-ticket items coming up that we're going to have to pay for. And we don't want to have to pay for that operationally. For instance, we have one fire truck that we know we have to buy in the next couple of years. That alone is about a $1.5 million purchase. And so we're trying to create that capital reserve account and get it healthy so that if we have those type of items, we're able to pay for them out of cash and not borrow to pay for them. And again, I want to thank the City Council for having the foresight for asking us to set up that account through an ordinance. Councilmember Wendell Lynch in particular was instrumental in setting that up. And that should be no surprise with his banking background that he understood the need for us to be thinking about the future. And so we will end this year with a healthy cash balance. In fact, we will end it with a higher cash balance than last year. I think that's important for us to all understand. Yes, we are spending money through the WINS Initiative and other programs, but we're also able to do so because we've had extremely strong financial management by our Chief Financial Officer and our department heads. And each and every year for the past several years, we've seen a surplus at the end of the year. And that's allowed us either to add to our cash reserves and or make some contributions to very important causes without having to borrow to do that, such as our contribution to the new HCC building, where we contributed $750,000, if my memory serves correct, or the skate park that was built out of cash reserve money or out of year-end money, or the dog park that was helped to be built out of year-end money. And so all of these things we've done without borrowing because of great financial management, not from the mayor's office, although our city administrator has been tremendous as well, but really because of Robert Martin's hard work and the work of our departments. The next shows you the 7-year payroll comparison, and if you look at this slide, you may think to yourself, well, the last 2 or 3 years, it's kind of weakened a little bit. Well, that's somewhat true. If you look at the first 4 years, going back to fiscal year 2011, we were beginning to emerge out of the recession. And so what really happened for the first 2 to 3 years coming out of the recession is you had an artificial inflation of payroll growth because we'd seen such a drop from those previous 3 or 4 years because of the Great Recession. And so certainly we would love to be able to average 8.85% payroll growth every single year, but that's not going to happen. If that happens, I shouldn't say it's not going to happen. I should say it's unlikely to happen. But if it happens, it means we're probably celebrating a number of large industry announcements. And we hope, Vonda, to be celebrating a number of large industry announcements over the coming years and months. But that 8.85% is really indicative of kind of compared to when we had dropped quite a bit and then we were growing back with some pretty serious expansions in that fiscal year 13 and 14 being announced and coming to fruition. The last 3 years have averaged right at 3%, as you can see. So we've seen 3% growth, which is certainly strong growth, stronger than a lot of peer cities across the state of Kentucky. We have budgeted each of the past several years to be at 2% growth. And so we've taken a conservative approach to our budget. Then we've outpaced the budget, and that's allowed us to finish year end with some surplus in addition to the great cost savings measures our departments take. Again, want to illustrate that, and even though the last 3 years aren't as good as the previous 4 years, we still think they're pretty solid and show a growing economy and strong financial management. So moving into the fiscal year 18-19 budget, here are some noteworthy items we want to point out to you. As we looked at this year's budget, you need to understand that there was one elephant in the room that we were afraid that we were going to be dealing with. And I'm looking at Representative Thomas because he dealt with this particular elephant throughout the entire legislative session, and that was the state's decisions around the pension. And we did not know the reality about the pension until about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, because there was a lot of discussion at the state level. A lot of people influencing our state legislators one way or another about what they wanted to see happen. At one point in time, we were thinking that we would have to come up with $2.1 million worth of new expenses to cover our pension liability. But after the General Assembly voted on their efforts, and when it was all said and done at the end of the day, the General Assembly passed legislation that required us to come up with $550,000 worth of new money to pay for our pension liability. That's still a pretty significant hit to our budget, but wasn't as significant as we were thinking. The reason I share that is because when we started this process a few weeks ago, about 8 to 10 weeks ago, we thought we would be coming to you today sharing that we needed to use prior year revenue to balance our budget. Basically what that means is dipping into our reserves to balance this year's budget, borrowing from the past to pay for the coming year's budget. It's been done before in this community. It has not been done since I've been mayor in this community, because we've always held it as a priority to not dip into prior year revenue. I know the council supports that priority. I know that our staff support that priority. But we really felt this year that we may have to. We used a payroll growth projection of 2.5%, which is slightly more aggressive than what we've used the past couple of years, but below the 3-year average of 3%. By using that 2.5% payroll growth projection, by looking at inflationary growth at other tax rates, no increase of tax rate itself, simply looking at inflationary growth of tax rates, we're able to propose a budget with no prior year revenue. And I'd like you to help me give Robert Martin and his team a round of applause for being able to make that happen. That doesn't mean it doesn't come without some sacrifice, because we're not using prior year revenue and we're still using conservative revenue projections. We are able to honor the $552,000 pension liability. We are also able to implement the payment plan, the pay plan for staff. This is the 3rd year of the pay plan, which means on average we will be granting our employees a 3.12% increase to their pay. It's going to cost us about $410,000. Again, that's the 3rd year of the pay plan, which was approved about 3 years ago. City Council directed us to implement that pay plan. We were committed to making that happen this year. When you take the pension and the pay plan and you look at that reality, it took most of the available new revenue that we would have. But that's a commitment that we felt that we had and one that we wanted to keep. Moving forward, as we look at next year, we're not sure what we'll do with the pay of our employees. We'll have to be as frugal and efficient as we can be, but we certainly appreciate our employees. And we want them to know that that was our commitment, your pension and your 3rd year of your pay plan. And we think that's a commitment we should have honored, and we're happy to be able to propose that we're honoring it today. And hopefully the council will support that, and I know that they've been very much concerned about us being able to do it. I also want to recognize for the public the reason we implemented that pay plan that Kenny Grabert and his team recommended a few years ago was because when you look at the pay of the City of Hopkinsville employees, in many areas we underperform against our peer cities. We don't pay as well. We just don't pay as well. And that's especially true at certain sections of our pay scale. And so this pay plan is meant to make us more competitive against our peer cities while valuing our employees at Team Hopkinsville even more. So we're excited to be able to recommend this today without using prior year revenue. We're also excited that we're going to be increasing our street paving budget. Nobody has a complaint about a pothole today, right? If you do, call Mike Perry's office. They're the ones that take care of that. Or you can also submit that online through the city's website, hoptown.org. However, or you can call me and we'll get to it as well. But however you submit it, we will get to it as best we can. But street paving is of critical importance. We are putting money into sidewalks through the WINS initiative, but for years we've been talking about how can we get more into our street paving budget. Well, this year's budget, we're increasing our street paving by $66,500, or just over 15.5%. Now, I want to clarify something. We are actually hoping that if we have enough year-end surplus and the council will support us, and again, we've got to make this recommendation once we give an official number, but we're hoping that we may be looking at, can we even supplement more through the year-end revenue to get even more money in street paving, because we recognize that we need to do more. And we have city streets that need more assistance. We also have state roads, like South Virginia Street, that need more assistance as well. But we tend not to want to spend city money on state roads because we have over 150 miles of city streets alone that need our resources, and the state roads should get the state resources. But on occasion, we will spend money on state roads if the issue is bad enough and we can get to it and fix it before the state can, because we recognize the state covers a large area, certainly larger than Hopkinsville and Christian County, and even though we advocate on our own behalf, there are times when they can't get to it as quickly as we'd like. And so we'll do our best to help if and when we can help. But I hope you appreciate that we're making a commitment to more street paving. And you're going to see some other commitments here that are going to help us execute those additional dollars, ensuring that we have better streets in the city of Hopkinsville. We're also recommending a small amount of money for the Campbell Strong Defense Alliance. You'll find that if you look at the budget in the miscellaneous line item. Now, I wanted to make sure to point that out because we weren't trying to hide it in miscellaneous. We're simply putting it in miscellaneous because it's really our commitment to a 6-county regional partnership to help match a federal grant that's been awarded to the Campbell Strong Defense Alliance through the Department of Defense. Actually, I think it's the Department of Labor. I just misspoke. But we put it in miscellaneous because we didn't want to put Campbell Strong in the agency line items because we're not setting the expectation that they're an agency that will get money forever. That is not the intent of that $15,000. So upon Robert's recommendation, we put it in miscellaneous, specifically naming it as the Campbell Strong Defense Alliance for $15,000, which will help the city of Hopkinsville match a federal grant that this alliance has gotten. The purpose of this alliance is to help grow Fort Campbell and to help increase its economic impact on our region. And so we certainly think it's a valuable alliance to support. We think it's absolutely necessary to see growth at Fort Campbell, which ultimately is a good thing for Hopkinsville and Christian County and the other counties that are represented in this 6-county region, which is Trigg and Todd, Stewart, Montgomery, and Robertson in Tennessee. And so I wanted to make sure to point that out because I don't want anybody to think we tried to tuck that away in there somewhere. I happen to be the co-chair of that alliance as well, so I wanted to make sure to acknowledge that. But that's not why we're supporting it. We're supporting it because we feel we need to be a partner in this effort, and the city of Clarksville and other counties throughout this region are also looking at the same type of commitment. Now, we have some other noteworthy items that we want to share, and these deal with positions, staff positions. And I need to acknowledge that given everything we were working against over the last few weeks and months, we were not very confident that we'd be able to come before you today and recommend any new positions for the city of Hopkinsville. Even with what we've been able to do, I'm somewhat a reluctant leader in acknowledging these positions, not because I don't think we need them, but I recognize the optics of having talked about the last several weeks of potentially cutting things, and now we're talking about adding items. However, with that being said, when we took all of our department requests into consideration and we looked at the revenue that we were going to have, we realized that it would be possible to do these things. So, first and foremost, we are recommending 2 full-time street maintenance workers in the city maintenance street department under the leadership of Mike Perry. Some of you may recall from last year's budget address and last year's discussions with our budget through city council, there were several council members that felt we needed to get more help in public works. We needed to get Mike Perry's team more help. We're trying to get them more help this year. We can afford it. We think they need it. Our public works team is smaller today than it was 10 years ago, substantially smaller. And yet we're asking more and more out of them every single day. And as we increase street paving, it's going to require someone to go out and do the work. So we're only exacerbating that issue if we don't try to add these 2 positions to our public works team. Again, the council will have to have that discussion, and whatever they decide, we'll certainly be okay with, and we'll do the best of our ability. The Sportsplex facility positions are positions that were built into the assumptions of building the Sportsplex. We've been discussing that at our recent Committee of the Whole meeting, and this just illustrates what we think it's going to take to make those positions happen in the budget. It's 1 full-time facilities coordinator position and a part-time event specialist position, and that's what's represented there. It is important to understand that with the Sportsplex, we also anticipate revenue coming in that will help pay for the positions. And that's not what we typically do with sports and recreation facilities. So, for instance, I know all of us are proud of Tiebreaker Park Softball Complex. All of us view Tiebreaker Park Softball Complex as a wonderful asset to our community. But if you held Tiebreaker Park Softball Complex up to a standard of does it pay for its own operations, the answer is it does not. None of them do. In any city, anywhere. They just can't. And so the measure can't be, does a sports facility pay for itself operationally? If that's the measure, then cities all across this country will quit building sports and recreation facilities. And yet they are critical in building the type of community that people want to be a part of. They're critical. And so I'm suggesting this because I know people will say, well, the Sportsplex isn't going to pay for itself. That's true in the first couple of years. Now, we hope it will as we make it successful, but in the first couple of years, it will not pay for itself. It can't pay for itself in the first couple of years. But unlike most of the other sports facilities we have, it will generate substantial revenue that gets it a lot closer to paying for itself than, say, DeBow Park or Tiebreaker Park or Ruff Park. Great facilities in their own right, none of them capable of producing the revenue that this Sportsplex facility will be able to pay for. So I want to acknowledge that as we talk about those positions, because even though we're proposing new expenses, you'll see in the budget we're also proposing new revenue specifically as a result of this Sportsplex facility. Of even greater importance is the economic impact potential to the community. You see, Tiebreaker Park doesn't make money against itself, but it does bring in thousands upon thousands of visitors to Hopkinsville and Christian County. And I see Cheryl Cook, our Convention and Visitor Bureau, shaking her head yes, because she's known it, because she's worked it. And by the way, if you don't mind, let's give Cheryl a round of applause. I believe she's announced her recent retirement for her years of hard work in this community on behalf of tourism and helping grow this economy by attracting more people to it. Cheryl, thank you for your hard work. But the Sportsplex is Tiebreaker Park on steroids. It's a year-round facility. It's not May through October. It's a 12-month facility giving us the capability of recruiting new sports tourism tournaments from all across this region, bringing teams in from Tennessee, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and certainly from across the state of Kentucky. In fact, we have projections that if we simply have 13 weekend tournaments, that can be volleyball, can be basketball, it could be archery, it could be cheer competitions, it could be pickleball, if anybody wants to play in a pickleball tournament. I did that from fifth graders the other day, and they went, what? Pickleball? They didn't know what pickleball was. Some of you might know what it is. It doesn't matter what the sports tournament is, but if we have 13 well-attended tournaments in a year, Tab, what's the number we project? I think it's about 10,000 visitors from 13 tournaments alone. 10,000 visitors. Those visitors, when they come into our community, spend money. More importantly, or of equal importance, it gives our own local teams an opportunity to not have to go somewhere else to spend their money. So, for instance, about a month ago, there were 8 Hopkinsville volleyball teams that went to Gatlinburg for a weekend tournament where they joined up with 62 other teams from throughout this area, throughout Tennessee and Kentucky. 70 volleyball teams in Gatlinburg. I happened to be there because my daughter was playing on one of those teams. I won't tell you exactly what we spent, but I will tell you it was sizable. Sizable. More than $1,000 for the weekend. I don't do that lightly. And I want our own families to be able to spend their money here, staying here, while drawing more families into this community as well. I can also acknowledge that the Sportsplex facility is one of the key reasons the new Holiday Inn decided to locate where they decided to locate in this community. They said specifically, as they were analyzing our market, specifically that the Sportsplex being built was a driving factor behind their decision, because they know it's going to bring families in who will spend their money and help grow our economy. So I understand what people may say about this facility if they don't understand it. But I also know the truth. And I refuse to let emotion and opinion get in the way of facts. And the facts are on our side in this community. This is a great facility. And yes, it's true. If you want to have a birthday party, we'll let you have a birthday party there too. All right, moving right along. To Parks and Recreation, we're also proposing adding a groundskeeper position of $38,640. This is actually attached to the Sportsplex position, but we're showing it as a groundskeeper for Parks and Recreation because it's our goal to get more out of that position than just at the Sportsplex. And I see Tab and Blaine and the team shaking their head. Again, if you think about our beautification efforts over the past several years, we're doing more and more, and so we need additional help with groundskeeping to help us with all of those efforts. We're also proposing 2 part-time positions to be our receptionists out here in our lobby at City Hall. We've been utilizing a program that's provided us pretty much free assistance at our receptionist desk. However, that program is starting to show some challenges. We're not getting those assistants as consistently, and as a result, there are times where we don't have a receptionist sitting at that desk. We think for the city to provide the best customer service possible, we need to always have a receptionist out there. We also think to provide the best building security possible, somebody has to sit at that desk and see everybody that walks through that door. Unfortunately, we live in a day and age where we have to think about those things. And we need somebody there at all times to ensure we provide the best customer service and we provide the best building security. So that's why we're proposing that position. And then finally, we're proposing an IT position upgrade. It is not a new position. It is an upgrade to one of our positions we believe will help us honor our IT department more and provide better retention for our IT department moving forward. I know that's a lot. I really do. And council members, I acknowledge that's a lot. And so I'll certainly understand the tough questions that should come forward as part of this conversation. Some other highlights we wanted to share very quickly here is just where our Hoptown Heroes program will continue. That's our effort to work with our veteran shelter to give our homeless veterans opportunities to help beautify our community and earn some money while doing so. We will continue with the Fresh Start program in partnership with our Inner City Res initiative, which is a program aimed at some workforce development opportunities for persistently underemployed and unemployed residents, primarily of the inner city in Hopkinsville, especially those that may have convicted felony status that provides that barrier to their employment. And that program has started small but been very successful for the sizes. I believe we've had, Linda, 3 cohorts so far. Does that sound about right? 3 cohorts, and we've had several of those members go on to get employment, and so we're really excited about that. We'll be issuing later this spring or early summer a RFP for the Postel lot. I'm looking at Steve Bourne. That'll actually come through their offices and the LDC's efforts, but that's to help hopefully redevelopment the Postel lot where the Postel building burned down a couple years ago. Also related to that, we're going to be working to renovate and restore the Sudden Service Station at the corner of Campbell and 9th Streets. We'll continue to hopefully build momentum off the eclipse feedback and impact that we received. I know most of you know this, but 27 different countries, 48 different states, a $30 million economic impact from the eclipse. We continue to get great feedback from visitors. Many have come back for a variety of reasons. In fact, we're going to give them some more reasons to come back. We will continue the Summer Salute Festival. Have we announced the music yet? So I can't announce who it is, but I'm going to tell you you're going to like it. I'm going to tell you you're going to like it. That is the 4th full weekend of August this year, 24th and 25th of August. Similar in style and fashion of what we've done the past couple of years. But again, Summer Salute Festival we hope brings people into our community. And we've got a new barbecue festival that will be launching this summer. What's the date on that one? July 27th. So if you like barbecue and live music, then the barbecue festival is going to be right up your alley here in downtown Hopkinsville. And in the budget, you'll see our continued commitment to the Christmas parade. And this year, on the weekend of the Christmas parade, we're going to have an ice skating rink. And that'll give you a chance to come downtown. And if you're like me, fall a lot on ice skates. But if anything else, just have a good experience downtown as part of the Christmas parade. Now, I want to be fair. That's only for the weekend of the Christmas parade. I realize there are other cities that have ice rinks for 6, 7, 8 weeks at a time. For instance, Clarksville this past winter had an ice rink for 8 weeks at the tune of $350,000. We didn't feel that our budget could afford a $350,000 ice skating rink, and so we have an ice skating rink we're proposing for 3 days or 4 days? 3 days over the weekend of the Christmas parade. So we're very excited about that. If you took the over on the hour, you're getting closer to being accurate. Moving right along. So $36,498,992 is the projected revenue that we will receive in the city of Hopkinsville. 47% of that through payroll tax. Business licenses represent 5%, the insurance premium tax 12%, and the property tax 14%. Everything else comes through other sources of funding, as you can tell, and I won't cover each one of those, but they represent the rest of it. But clearly, our 4 tax rates that we have are the most important to ensuring that we have a healthy budget and that we're able to provide the quality of life and quality of services that our residents so richly deserve. Again, I'll remind you, in this budget, we are proposing no rate increases to any one of those 4 tax rates. Not the property tax, not anything else. Any growth we are showing is from inflationary growth that we are projecting using conservative estimates. So just want to make sure that I state that again. The projected expenses are also $36,498,992. They are equal to the revenue, so we have a balanced budget, which we're required to present you a balanced budget, and this budget is in fact balanced. If you look at how they break apart, the lion's share of your expenses, come from our employees, our personnel. 38% payroll, 12% retirement contributions, 7% fringes, with another 1% in police and fire pension debt. So that puts you at basically 60% of the overall expenses are our employees. The people that make the work happen, the people that respond to the fire, that respond to the emergency, the people that plow the streets of our snow, that pour the sidewalks, that mow the right-of-ways, the people that work inside this building every single day to the utmost of their ability, doing so with wonderful customer service and respect for the taxpayer. That's who this budget largely represents in expenses. And then you can see the remainder of it with 15% being operational, and then the rest of it there you do see other line items. And again, I won't cover each one of those. You have your packet. You can look at that. If you look by department, you can quickly see that we have broken down in our various departments. Agencies represent 9%, Public Works 13%, Fire Department 22%, the ECC 4%, the Police Department 22%, and then the rest of us fall into some smaller percentage. Again, if you put that together, what you're looking at is between Public Works, Police, Fire, and ECC represents about 60% of the overall budget. So roughly 2/3 of the City of Hopkinsville budget is in Public Works, Fire, and Police Protection. All departments are important, but those are the 3 most important departments if you think about the priorities. They are the departments that ensure that we have safe streets, safe sidewalks, safe neighborhoods, that we can respond to emergencies in real time. That doesn't mean those of us in administration and other departments aren't important. It doesn't mean the agencies aren't important. You are. But the citizens and taxpayers of this community expect us to provide the public service, public works, and public safety. It is a fundamental responsibility of government to its people. And so our budget reflects that. Our capital fund cash reserve, you're going to look there, you're going to say, well, why is it so low fiscal year ending June 2018 compared to the remainder of the fiscal year ending numbers there? Because this past year, we took $500,000 from that reserve account, and we matched that with some borrowed money to buy a new fire truck. That's why it is. So instead of borrowing all of the money to buy the fire truck, we took some of our cash and we matched it with what we had to borrow to buy that fire truck. That's why it's lower. That's the only reason it's lower, because we thought that fire truck was that important. Looking at your capital budget, we have $1.4 million, almost $1.5 million set aside in revenue for the capital budget. That's funded through the insurance premium tax that we have. We also have expenses of roughly that same $1.5 million. In fact, we show a small excess of $1,565. So certainly very small excess of money we'll have left over at the end of the year for capital. You can see a lot of our capital budget is consumed by debt payments from this building and the police building. That's about $550,000. We also purchase about $329,000 worth of police cars each and every year. We also have 2 fire truck payments that we're making that total almost $200,000. We have a street sweeper that we bought recently. That's about $60,000. So of that $1.5 million, about $1.1 million is accounted for in debt payments and police car replacement. Okay? The rest of it we try to break out and honor the needs of our departments as best we can. Each and every year with our department heads, we sit down and we say, this is what we have, this is what you've requested, what is your real number 1, number 2, number 3 priority? They tell us, and then we try to tackle their priorities just as they tell us their priorities are. You will notice one small line item in the capital budget for $25,000 for Project Playground. How many of you have ever been or know about Project Playground, right? Raise your hand if you don't mind. Most of us know where it is and know something about it. Many of you helped to build it back in 2007, 2006? 2007. I look at Nikki because I know she was instrumentally involved there. It was just part of her life and love there for a few months. And that was built based on volunteer labor. Thousands of volunteers from this community helped to build it using in-kind donations and some cash contributions. It's about 11 years old now. It's starting to show some wear and tear. we're starting to be concerned about that wear and tear. So this $25,000 would simply allow our Parks and Recreation team to begin the process of looking at what's next for Project Playground. What do we need to do to ensure it remains as popular a playground tomorrow as it is today, and that it's safe for the young people and families that are using it. And when you go out on a nice day, like yesterday, for instance, at about 5 in the afternoon, you will see dozens to hundreds of people using Project Playground. This past Sunday, as I finished running on the Greenway, I saw no shorter than 60 cars at Project Playground on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. So it's in there as a placeholder to help us get started with the process of what we're going to need to do to make sure that Project Playground remains the type of playground that we can all be proud of and that is safe for our families that are using it. Again, that is our capital budget. If you go inside the packet, the actual budget packet, you'll see more specifics to what that money represents, and I would encourage you to do so. But for sake of time, I'm going to move past this. So that's our budget presentation. I did beat the hour mark. You're welcome. With that in mind, I'll certainly open it up to any questions. Before I open up to questions, I do want to say two things, two concluding thoughts. First, I want to read to you from a card that was submitted recently by a young person in Hopkinsville. I won't read everything on it, but this is how it starts. It says, "There are no words that could adequately express my gratitude toward the youth programs of Hopkinsville. Both the youth council and the summer internships have opened my eyes and softened my heart. I have a deep regret of contributing to the negative perspective of Hopkinsville prior to my junior year. I'd like to say that I have recovered from that mistake. All of my GSP acquaintances identify me as the girl from Eclipseville, and my friends often tease me because of my obvious love for the city. I defend this town when anyone speaks negatively of it, and I spend much of my time explaining why I plan to return after college." She continues, "My answer is not for us to establish more restaurants or a go-kart track to make Hopkinsville a better place. For me, it's the exposure to the passionate and zealous leadership of Hopkinsville. I have traveled to many, many places. I mean it when I say the attitude of Team Hopkinsville is unlike any other mindset of a city. We are a community of commitment, and that above all else is worth returning to. We have the passion that the world lacks, and I wish more people in Hopkinsville realized it." And she says, "I often joke of running for mayor. If that is indeed where my life leads, I hope to at least have half as much dedication and skill as Team Hopkinsville shows in this community. I admire what the team is doing, that you're leading by action, and I'm excited to see where the team leads Hopkinsville next." Now, we can all talk about wanting more young people to return home, and every candidate and every elected official believes that. But are we willing to do what it takes to invest in our community in a way that actually inspires them to do so? I'm not sharing her name out of respect for her. You want to come read the card for yourself, feel free to do so. Because I was blown away by that card, and I hope you were too. And that card wasn't... That's the only way this gets done. And in conclusion, today is May the 4th. Many of you may be Star Wars fans. And I say, may the 4th be with you and with Hoptown as well. Any questions that you might have? Anybody? I've beat you down by going an hour, haven't I? If you have any questions after this presentation, call 270-890-0200. My cell phone, 270-348-6226. Email me at chendricks@hopkinsvilleky.us or stop by at any time. And if we're available, we'll certainly make time for you. Thank you for coming.